This program is supported by
SMC Infrastructure, building a better world.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to our program tonight. And now for the headlines.
The knife-edge U.S. presidential race tilts toward Democrat Joe Biden, with wins in Michigan and Wisconsin bringing him close to a majority. But President Trump claims he's being cheated and goes to court to try and stop the vote counting.
270 electoral votes needed to.
Tropical storm Eta pushed into Honduras on Wednesday after leaving behind a trail of destruction in Nicaragua, where it made landfall the day before as a Category 4 hurricane.
And England's 56 million people joined much of Western Europe in a second coronavirus lockdown as the U.S. set a fresh daily record with close to 100,000 new infections.
And check out this clinic in Japan, which specializes in restoring much-loved teddies and other cuddly toys to their original glory, delighting deeply attached owners.
A divided nation is still waiting tonight to learn who will be the next occupant of the White House. The tide has apparently turned in favor of former Vice President Joe Biden by flipping the northern battlegrounds of Michigan and Wisconsin and also winning formerly pro-Trump Arizona. Biden reached 264 electoral votes against 214 so far for Trump.
And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever.
We will win this, and as far as I'm concerned, we already have won.
So we may not know the results even today, but the most important thing is that we have accurate results. Again, even if that takes a little longer than we're used to. Make no mistake, our democracy is being tested in this election.
Now, by flipping the northern battlegrounds of Michigan and Wisconsin, as mentioned earlier, and also winning formerly pro-Trump Arizona, Biden has reached 264 electoral votes against 214 so far for Trump.
Compassion for each other, and you know, whatever the outcome is, we'll have to move on, and especially during these difficult times. So the most important message is we're all in this together. You know, whether you voted for one person or the other.
I am worried. I think it's very upsetting to be challenging our democratic process. And we knew from the get-go that it was going to take time. These are different circumstances with the virus.
By flipping the northern battlegrounds of Michigan and Wisconsin and also winning formerly pro-Trump Arizona, Biden reached 264 electoral votes against 214 so far for President Trump to reach 270. He was hoping next to add the 6 electoral votes from Nevada, where he had a small and shrinking lead, or even better, the larger prizes of hard-fought Georgia or Pennsylvania. However, President Trump, 74, claimed victory unilaterally and made clear he would not accept the reported results, issuing unprecedented complaints unsupported by any.
Legal experts see the potential of a litigation coming, largely targeting mail-in ballots in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The Trump campaign vowed to request a recount in Wisconsin. It also vowed lawsuits to stop the counting in Michigan and Pennsylvania. Campaign officials said their observers were not allowed to watch at close distances. It's a charge the election officials, of course, deny. Officials in all of those states insisted the process is playing out as it should. Watch this.
And that the public, you all, can trust the... This meticulous process is all about and focused on ensuring every absentee ballot is counted accurately and fairly. We have many secure protocols in place to confirm the validity of every ballot. And in fact, that's why the process takes so much time. Our goal is to ensure, again, we're being transparent, but also fully accurate, and that the public, you all, can trust the results of the results as an accurate reflection of the will of the people.
So Wisconsin's counting and reporting of unofficial results has gone according to law. Our municipal and county clerks have worked tirelessly throughout the night to make sure that every valid ballot has been counted and reported accurately. Today, the Wisconsin Elections Commission staff will be standing ready to assist clerks as they start the process of triple checking the results.
This afternoon, the Trump campaign filed a lawsuit to stop the counting of ballots in Pennsylvania. That is simply wrong. It goes against the most basic principles of our democracy. It takes away the right of every American citizen to cast their vote and to choose our leaders. We have to have fair elections, and those elections have to be free of external influences. We need to have confidence that people are choosing their leaders and that the leaders are not choosing the people who vote for them.
Outside, protesters gathered calling for every ballot to be counted. The tight White House race and recriminations evoked memories of the 2000 election between Republican George W. Bush and Democrat Al Gore. That race, which hinged on a handful of votes in Florida, eventually ended up in the Supreme Court, which halted a recount while Bush was ahead.
Meanwhile, Democrat Joe Biden has won the crucial battleground state of Michigan. U.S. networks projected on Wednesday evening, Thursday time here, meaning the former vice president has flipped another state won by President Trump in 2016. CNN and NBC News projected the win for Biden in the Midwestern state, which unexpectedly went to Trump by less than half a percentage point in 2016 in one of the stunning state defeats suffered by Hillary Clinton. Let's take a look.
I'm confident we'll emerge victorious. But this will not be my victory alone or our victory alone. It'll be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. And there will be no blue states and red states when we win, just the United States of America. Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country that ever won the presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated an incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement.
Now, U.S. news networks showed an aggressive pro-Trump crowd also gathering outside a vote counting office in the important Arizona county in Maricopa, which includes Phoenix. Burly law enforcement officers formed a protective line at the facility's doors. Some of the protesters openly carried firearms, which is legal in the state, while people chanted, "Count the votes." Both men still had paths to winning the White House by hitting the magic majority threshold of 270 of the electoral votes awarded to whichever candidate wins the popular popular vote in a given state. But momentum moved to Biden, who made a televised speech, as we saw earlier, from his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware, to say that when the count is finished, we will believe we will be the winners, or we believe we will be the winners. By flipping the northern battlegrounds of Michigan and Wisconsin and also winning formerly pro-Trump Arizona, Biden reached 264 electoral votes against 214 so far for Trump.
Meanwhile, Australia's leader and foreign minister speak about the U.S. election in Sydney, express confidence in the robustness of the democratic processes and institutions, despite comments from U.S. President Donald Trump questioning the vote counting process. Watch this.
And I have great confidence in the democracy of the United States. And I have great confidence in their institutions. And the thing about great institutions and democracies is they deal with whatever challenges come, just like our own does. And that's why I express confidence. I think, a great democracy, having a great election with the greatest turnout it's ever seen in its history, is actually a demonstration of democracy working.
US systems and processes which have been in place for a very long time now, which underpin that democratic process, they will deliver an outcome. What is important is that every vote is counted, and I'm sure that they will be. I'm absolutely confident that they will be.
More protests. Oregon police and National Guard troops in camouflage trucks pursued far-left protesters around the U.S. city of Portland as the riot was declared late Wednesday, making at least 10 arrests. The northwestern city that has seen continuous protests since summer had been placed on high alert by Governor Kate Brown, who extended an election night emergency order amid fears of violent clashes over the contested U.S. polls. A heavy law enforcement presence flooded the streets after a handful of demonstrators broke off from hundreds strong anti-Trump protests to shatter storefront windows, and a man believed to have thrown a Molotov cocktail was also arrested. The Multnomah County Sheriff's Office cited widespread violence in the city's downtown area, including glass bottles thrown at police who advanced on demonstrators. Portland has seen months of clashes between police and demonstrators, angered at the repeated killings of Black Americans by law enforcement officers across the country. Eagle News will be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Canreeve Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
The Metro Rail Transit 7, or MRT-7, is a planned rail and road project from North Avenue, Quezon City to San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, with 14 stations, which can service 650,000 passengers daily. And very soon, the construction of the new Manila International Airport in Bulacan, Bulacan is expected to accommodate 100 million passengers annually and promises to be another significant contribution to progress in the Philippines.
Welcome back to the news. After queuing outside soon-to-close shops or getting a last haircut, England's 56 million people entered a second coronavirus lockdown on Thursday with more doubts about the stringent policy than the first time around. Prime Minister Boris Johnson abandoned a recently introduced system of regional curbs and announced an England-wide shutdown after dire warnings that hospitals could soon be overwhelmed with COVID-19 cases. The death toll is hitting 6-month highs. Watch this.
We have to face the reality that, in common with many other countries in this part of the world, we are now facing a surge in that virus, which this House must now tackle with the measures we've outlined. They will expire, as honourable members know, on December the 2nd. I hope very much the members opposite will support them tonight.
For us, it's absolutely insane. To go through this again just before Christmas is actually death by 1,000 cuts. We will adapt, we will survive, but we have to take a different approach. We did all of the things they asked us to do. We invested that money, and now we're being told to close down again. And for us, it's not a long-term solution. I know we need to get the cases under control, but let's use this time to get our contract tracing done properly. Let's use this time to ensure that we can get test and tracing done properly.
The 2 weeks before the first lockdown, it was actually very quiet. The salon was very quiet. So we were actually relieved when they told us, look, you do have to close your doors. And then we did receive the financial support. But this lockdown, we are a little bit disappointed and worried because we don't know how long it's going to be.
I think financially, it's going to be super challenging. You know, all nighttime economy businesses, all entertainment businesses, all leisure businesses absolutely rely on the winter boom and December and Partyland and all the kind of cultural plays that normally happen at this time of year. To enter another lockdown at this key time without funding and without any kind of recognition from the government, it is going to be really, really challenging.
But while opinion polls suggest overall public backing for the stay-at-home policy, concerns are mounting about the impact on the economy and on mental health. A sizable minority of 32 MPs from the ruling Conservative Party voted against the measures on Wednesday. When the country entered its first lockdown in bright March springtime, support was strong. But compliance with coronavirus measures has been fraying the longer they drag on into the winter as people's livelihoods came under greater strain. Britain is among the world's hardest hit countries with nearly 48,000 deaths linked to the coronavirus from just over 1 million positive cases. A total of 492 deaths within 28 days of a positive test were recorded on Wednesday, the highest number since mid-May. England joined the other nations of the UK, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland in imposing another lockdown in line with European nations, including France and Germany.
Meanwhile, Italy prepared on Wednesday to impose a nationwide curfew and new lockdowns in some of its regions to stem a surge in coronavirus cases following European neighbors in introducing new restrictions. From Friday, Italy's 60 million residents will be required to stay home from 10 p.m. until 5 a.m., except for work or health reasons, under the new decree signed by Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. The government had originally said the new curbs would begin on Thursday, but later delayed them by a day to give businesses affected by the new clampdowns more time to prepare, and they're set to run through December 3. Under the new rules, the country's regions will be divided into zones, high risk, medium high, and moderate, based on how quickly the virus is spreading and availability of hospital beds, among other factors. In the handful of high-risk red zones, retail stores not selling essential goods, such as food and pharmaceuticals, are to shut down. People will be prohibited from circulating freely except for work, health, and emergency reasons, and from traveling outside their hometown or city. Travel between some regions is to be restricted as well. On the red zone list is prosperous industrial Lombardy in Italy's north, neighboring Piedmont, the southern region of Calabria, and the Aosta Valley bordered by France and Switzerland. Only Sicily and Puglia are considered medium risk zones with slightly fewer restrictions than red zone regions, and the rest of Italy's 20 regions are moderate.
Meanwhile, in Greece, they will re-enter a lockdown from Saturday for 3 weeks to battle a second wave of the coronavirus, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis announced. He told a video conference, quote, And I quote, "It was a difficult decision, but measures must be taken for 3 weeks to overcome this second wave," end quote. Under the measures, Greeks can only leave their homes if they make an official request via SMS or mobile phone and then receive authorization. Only essential shops, including supermarkets and pharmacies, can stay open when the lockdown starts at 6 a.m. on Saturday, he said. Unlike the previous 6-week lockdown that began in late March, he said kindergartens and primary schools will remain open. Secondary school pupils will be taught remotely, something university students are already doing under recent measures. The new lockdown comes as the daily tally of coronavirus cases continues to grow. A total of 2,646 new infections and 18 deaths were recorded on Wednesday, up sharply from last week.
In another development, Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven said he had gone into self-isolation after a person in his vicinity had met with someone who had been confirmed to have COVID-19. Löfven said in a Facebook post that he had isolated together with his wife and would be working from home and would try to get tested as soon as possible. Now, the Prime Minister said he had not been in direct contact with someone confirmed to have the coronavirus, but someone in his vicinity had. And even if that person had since tested negative, he had decided to self-isolate on the advice of his doctor.
Meanwhile, in neighboring Denmark, which is also facing a resurgence in cases, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is also in self-isolation after the Justice Minister tested positive. An initial test proved negative, but her cabinet said Wednesday evening that she would remain in isolation pending a second test. Denmark, the world's largest or biggest producer of mink fur, also announces it will cull all of the country's minks after a mutated version of the new coronavirus was detected at mink farms and had spread to people. The World Health Organization said the novel coronavirus spreads primarily through human-to-human transmission, but that there is evidence of transmission at the human-animal interface. Several animals, including dogs and cats, have tested positive for the virus, and there have been reported cases at mink farms in the Netherlands and Spain, as well as in Denmark.
China on Thursday defended a ban on non-Chinese arrivals from Britain, Belgium, and the Philippines as reasonable and fair as it guards against a resurgence of the coronavirus. COVID-19 first emerged in central China late last year, but Beijing has largely brought its own outbreak under control through tight travel restrictions and stringent health measures for anyone entering the country. In March, as the virus ripped across the world, China shut its borders to all foreign nationals. It gradually eased restrictions to allow those stranded overseas to return with special permission from its embassies, negative COVID-19 tests, and a 2-week quarantine on arrival. But in a sharp reversal, as the outbreak once more billows out across Europe, the Chinese embassy in the UK on Wednesday said Beijing had decided to temporarily suspend entry from Britain by non-Chinese nationals. Embassies in Belgium and the Philippines have put out similar notices.
In other news, Tropical Storm Eta pushed into Honduras on Wednesday after leaving behind a trail of destruction in Nicaragua, where it made landfall the day before as a Category 4 hurricane. At least 4 people have died, 2 in Nicaragua and 2 in Honduras. And that was because of when Eta dumped heavy rain that unleashed widespread flooding and landslides, according to officials. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Wednesday that Eta had weakened to a tropical depression, but continued to warn of life-threatening flash flooding over portions of Central America. Honduras Emergency Response Commission, COPECO, said 3,000 people had been evacuated from their homes in the path of the storm. Landslides swept away roads and at least 5 bridges, and the highway linking the capital, Tegucigalpa, with the second city, San Pedro Sula, was cut off by a mudslide. Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez called for solidarity to overcome the challenges caused by the destruction.
In other news, a North Korean man was captured by South Korea's military on Wednesday after crossing the inter-Korean border, according to Seoul. The man was identified by Seoul only as a North Korean male, according to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in a statement. Investigations will be conducted in cooperation with related agencies for details, it added, including whether the man sought to defect to the South. No unusual activity of the North's military has been detected, it said. Last year, a North Korean soldier made a river crossing of the demilitarized zone that divides the peninsula. More than 30,000 North Koreans have escaped to the south since the two were separated by war more than 65 years ago, according to the Seoul government data, many of them driven by prolonged economic hardship.
Turkey called off its search and rescue mission 5 days after a powerful quake hit the Aegean Sea, killing 116 people in western Turkey and Greece. The 7-magnitude quake struck on Friday off the Turkish town of Seferihisar, becoming the deadliest disaster in Turkey in nearly 10 years. The Turkish disaster agency AFAD said on Wednesday 114 people had died and more than 1,000 were injured. 2 teenagers were also killed in Greece. Their work had been closely followed across Turkey, with many people glued to their screens as children, including 2 little girls, were rescued days after the quake in the worst affected town of Bayrakli. Ida Gezgin, aged 3, was rescued on Tuesday, nearly 4 days after the quake. But hours later, the body of her mother, Fidan, 38, was removed from underneath the rubble. Fidan was laid to rest on Wednesday as her son, Atakan, said an emotional farewell, Miliada Daily reported. Dozens of buildings were heavily damaged or collapsed after the quake, while many more suffered lighter damage.
Meanwhile, thick smog has enveloped India's capital as its air quality plummets, and residents say they are feeling suffocated. Due to Delhi's position and weather pattern, the city is choked by deadly smog every winter. Take a look.
आपकी आंखें जलना है, नाक में ऐसा लगता है जैसे किसी ने कुछ फेंक दिया है, मिर्च वगैरह, मिर्च पाउडर होता है, वो ऐसा कुछ डाल दिया है। ये आप पूरा फील कर सकते हैं। बात करते करते आपको खांसी आ जाएगी, बात करते करते ऐसा लगेगा कि कुछ गले में जमा हुआ है।
It's so difficult to breathe. I feel so suffocated with this mask. All the time, 24/7 you are wearing it. Yeah, we feel suffocated.
Eagle News will be right back. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation.
We're inviting you to watch Himig ng Lahi this week.
Mapapanood ninyo ang inyong mga paboritong singers at ang kanilang mga pinasikat na awitin.
Paminsan-minsan ang alaala mo'y why can't it be? Why can't it be the two of us? Gabi-gabi na lang sa pagtulog ko, ikaw lang panaginip ko. Harap kita yan ay alam mo na, huwag kang mag-iisip na ako ay nagbago na sa'yo. Di ko magagawa, pinagkulang man ako.
Tayong mga Filipino, likas na palabati. Sanay rin tayong makipagkamay. Pero dahil na rin sa COVID pandemic, isinusulong ang pagbati na hindi na kailangan pang makipagkamay. Ang pambansang pagbati. Ito ay ang pagdampi ng kanang palad sa gitnang bahagi ng dibdib, kasabay ng bahagyang pagyukod ng ulo o paibabang tingin at pagsambit ng mga salitang nagpapahayag ng pagbati, paggalang o pagpupugay. Pagkatapos nito ay ang pag-angat ng ulo ng nakangiti at nakatingin sa mata ng binabati. Pambansang pagbati, pagpapakita ng paggalang, kababaang loob at pagiging sensero nating mga Filipino.
A second wave of the coronavirus pandemic has stalled nascent recovery in Europe, the EU said on Thursday, warning that the economy would not return to pre-virus normality before 2023. The soured outlook dashed hopes for a quick turnaround of the European economy and raised questions whether more stimulus would be needed to avert more lasting damage. Watch this.
The aggregate debt to GDP ratio is projected to reach 102% in the euro area this year and 94% in the EU, which is about 15 percentage points above the 2019 level. The pandemic caused the deepest recession in EU history in the first half of 2020, surpassing that in the great financial crisis. This contraction, which was uneven among member states, was followed by a strong rebound in the third quarter. This forecast implies that GDP for the EU as a whole will be just shy of its pre-pandemic level by end of 2022. But unfortunately, this is not the case for all member states. The most severely hit euro area countries are forecast to reach double-digit deficit ratios in 2020, namely Belgium, France, Italy and Spain.
All 19 Eurozone countries are mired in recession this year, but 3 are particularly hard hit. Spain with a dive of 12.4%, Italy at minus 9.9%, and France at minus 9.4%. Germany, the bloc's leading economy, has limited the damage, with GDP expected to fall 5.6% in 2020. The downturn has led member states to open the purse strings in the hopes of saving their economies, and public deficits have widened to more than 10% in the case of France, Italy, Spain, and Belgium. As a clear consequence, the debt of the member states is expected to soar in 2020 and will exceed 100% of GDP in the Eurozone as a whole. The Commission called on the European Central Bank to keep doing all it can to offset the negative consequences of this heavy debt.
Saudi Arabia said it will ease key restrictions on millions of foreign workers as part of plans to reform its long-criticized labor policy. Human rights groups have repeatedly called on the kingdom to abolish its kafala sponsorship system, described by critics as a modern form of slavery that binds workers to their Saudi employers. The Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development said that from March 14, expatriates will no longer need their employer's permission to change jobs, travel, or leave Saudi Arabia, home to some 10 million foreigners. This initiative will improve and increase the efficiency of the work environment, the ministry said in a statement carried by the official Saudi press agency. Satam Al-Arbi, as deputy minister at the ministry, said the reforms will abolish runaway reports against foreign workers who do not report for duty, which effectively renders them criminals at risk of being jailed and deported. Human Rights Watch last week said the kingdom had one of the most restrictive kafala systems in the Gulf, which it said facilitates abuse and exploitation, including forced labor, trafficking, and slavery-like conditions. After the economic disruption that came with the coronavirus pandemic, campaigners say potentially hundreds of thousands of illegal workers remain stranded in Saudi Arabia.
Malaysian state energy giant Petronas on Thursday set a target of net zero carbon emissions by 2050, the latest major oil company to step up efforts to combat climate change. The firm, a significant contributor to Malaysian government revenue, said it would aim to slash emissions by steps such as improving the energy efficiency of its operations and focusing more on renewables. The energy industry has long been criticized for inaction on climate change, but several companies have responded to the growing pressure in recent times. Petronas, Malaysia's only Fortune 500 company, has set a target that is in line with commitments by British energy company BP and Anglo-Dutch giant Royal Dutch Shell. Governments have also been pledging to slash emissions. Japan last month set a 2050 deadline to become carbon neutral, putting it on the same timeline as Europe and Britain, and a decade ahead of China, which recently set a 2060 goal.
And we'll take a short break. Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Portion is brought to you by Kubert, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Kubert, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
The search for the best continues. Tagisan ng Galing Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. If you are 21 to 59 years old and have what it takes to be the next Tagisan ng Galing Grand Winner as a solo performer, duet, trio, band, or grouped act, submit your audition entries now. Just follow these guidelines. To submit audition entries for the singing category, contact Nikki at 0977-651-9504. This is your chance to be Tagisan ng Galing's grand winner and win 2 million pesos. For more details and updates, visit and like the Tagisan ng Galing Facebook page. What are you waiting for? Join now!
And the Iglesia ni Cristo continues to help people who were affected by the pandemic. In Georgia, USA, the Warner Robins mayor said that the neighborly gesture of the Iglesia ni Cristo means much to Georgians who lost their income due to the pandemic. Take a look.
Hello, everyone. We're here in Warner Robins, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half south of the city of Atlanta, where the Iglesia No Cristo is hosting an Aid to Humanity event aimed at helping those in this community who have been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Members of the Iglesia No Cristo, or Church of Christ, from all over Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina united efforts to put together aid packages containing a variety of food and supplies. Using a drive-through distribution method, volunteers gave out over 500 bags to community residents. While many showed up after seeing a flyer or advertisement, some just stopped by to see what all the lively activity was about. The event garnered the attention of Mayor Randy Toms, who joined in handing out supplies to residents. We spoke with him about the Warner Robins community and the impact of this activity.
So I think that these kind of functions right here lets us see as a community, but also lets us see as leadership that even though because of Robins Air Force Base, Middle Georgia still does pretty good financially, but yet there are people that have been affected by the loss of jobs and the loss of income and that need some help. They just need a little bit of help. And I don't think people can wrap their minds around how important just a bag of food is to their everyday life. And so it's a big deal. And certainly this virus, which has affected my family personally, is real. And there are people that have suffered losses of loved ones, but also loss of income. And so, and they don't need a lot. They just need a little bit of help. And I can tell you, as much as the bag of food, the people that are out here giving their time to give those bags of food to these people coming through these lines, that means as much as the food does sometimes, because they want to just know that somebody loves them. And so that's a big, big deal. And so, yeah, it's a big part of our life. We all are suffering loss because of this virus, but now we get an opportunity to show each other love, and I think that's important.
We also spoke with representatives of the Church of Christ to understand their aim, which was to show love for their neighbors even in the midst of the current pandemic.
Well, seeing how we're in a time of COVID-19 and also even economic difficulty, it's a lot of people are out needing help, hoping for, whatever kind of assistance they can get. But as you can see, members of the Church of Christ, we're doing our best to be able to help those that we can reach. And it's nice to think that by the help of God, we're able to help our fellow men here in this part of the world.
And even though it may have been behind a mask, we know there were many smiles around today. In Warner Robins, Georgia, I'm Philip Toledo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Another Aid to Humanity happening in the Greater Toronto area. And to tell us more about this, here's April Masongsong. April.
Today, October 31st, the members of the Church of Christ in the Greater Toronto area made generous donations to those in need. Led by their district supervising minister, Brother Glendo Baitan, Church of Christ members overall donated 18,000 pounds of food items to the North York Harvest Food Bank and made much-needed cash donations to the Sick Kids Foundation. The Aid to Humanity event was held at one of the chapels of the Church of Christ in Toronto. Along with the ministers and members of the Church of Christ, it was attended by the Consul General of the Philippine General Consulate in Toronto, Orontes V. Castro, Sick Kids Associate Director of Community Partnerships, Kirsten Eyes, North York Harvest Director of Development and Marketing, Henry Chu, Member of the Parliament for Scarborough Centre, Salma Zahid, and Councillor Francis Nunziata of the York Southwestern area. Here is what the delegates have to say about the event.
The Church of Christ and Felix Manalo Foundation has been a long-time supporter even before the pandemic. We're just so thankful that you guys are coming through again, especially during this time. Now, for us, we needed the support because we needed to sustain our service for the community. So more important is this support. We allow our community to know that, during these difficult times, there are others in the community who are willing to support. whether it's through the form of financial contribution or in the form of food, and they know that they're not alone. So when they come to rely on us, we're just so thankful that we have an organization or the community like you guys that were able to support us. Because ultimately, without the support, we can't do what we do.
Truly, the Iglesia ni Cristo's event today, you live by the golden rule. Meaning, you do to others, to your whatever you do to you others or to your brethren, you do it to God. So it sums up, the humanitarian activities today by the Iglesia ni Cristo. So you're doing great here.
The delegates expressed their gratitude and appreciation to Brother Eduardo V. Manalo as he leads the Church of Christ members in extending kindness towards their fellow men, especially at this time of the pandemic.
Ako po ay kasama ng napakaraming Pilipino sa bansa natin at ganun din po dito sa bansang Canada sa pagbati ng isang maalab na maligayang kaarawan sa kagalang-galang na Executive Minister Eduardo V. Manalo. Happy birthday po sa inyo at naway patuloy pa po kayong kandiliin ng ating may kapal sa pagsisilbi sa bayan at sa ating mga kababayan po. Maraming salamat. Kasama po namin mga Iglesia ni Cristo at ang ating mga kababayan dito po sa Canada, lalong-lalo na po sa Greater Toronto area. Happy birthday po sa inyong lahat. Sa inyo po, Executive Minister. Maraming salamat po.
On behalf of our clients, staff, and volunteers at North York Harvest Food Bank, Mr. Eduardo Manalo, happy birthday. The birthday is a special way to celebrate the birth, but more importantly, for us, we should get to celebrate people who are doing good things, how to make the best use of their living years. And you have set a great example, and your congregants are setting a great example in what it means to be members of the community. And us as beneficiaries, we thank you for your continued support, especially on your special day. Have a great day, and many more to come.
In Toronto, April Masongsong, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, April. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, the Natsumi Clinic is specializing in restoring much-loved stuffed toys to their original glory, delighting owners like Yu Kato, who brought in her sheep Yuki-chan. Take a look.
毛が最初に抜けて土台が見えて網網に破れも。
本当に家にいる時は本当にずっと一緒に寝てたので、この子がいなくなるとなんかこれまでの自分の思い出も一緒に消えてしまうような気がして、ちょっと心細いっていうのはあります。どうもありがとうございました。また連絡します。ありがとうございました。ありがとうございます。
ぬいぐるみを家族と思って大事にしている方がこう信頼してこうぬいぐるみを預けてくださるっていうことに対してやっぱり安くそれなりに直して返すっていうことが私はちょっとできなかったんですね。だったらちょっと料金はねかかってしまうんですけれども、その子一人一人をしっかり見てあげて、でそのぬいぐるみがこれからもずっとその家族と長く一緒にいられるようにしっかりと治療して返したいなって思ったからですね。お父さん さんがこう具合悪くなっちゃったからじゃあ次違うお父さんっていうわけにはいかないのと一緒で、そのぬいぐるみ自身が一人の家族なので、まあだったら治療するっていう選択肢になってくるんだと思います。そうなんですよ。もともとお尻も元気。そうお尻もバッチリ。
心ハートっていう前の綿をハート型にしてもらってこの中に入れてもらっているので、外見は違うんですけど、思い出の一部分がこのゆきちゃんの中にも入っているので、全く違う子じゃない。自分にとっては、18年前に出会った時と同じです。
Really sweet.
Yes.
Did you have a lot of toys when you were?
Yes, a lot of dolls.
A lot of dolls. Okay. Well, that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm CJ Hero. Join us again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.